The Celestia Code, Chapter 9, Fallout.
Well, Jigsaw observed dryly once the changeling had departed. That's not in the least bit disturbing. Do you think she's just messing with you? I rolled Chrysalis's note back up and put it in my saddlebag. I can't be sure, but I think she's telling the truth. So what now? I think returning to Canterlot would be wise. Jigsaw sputtered for a second before flattening her ears and shouting, Are you crazy? All this way to just turn around? I don't have the right to risk your life just to satisfy my curiosity. Well, it's my curiosity too. She snorted and stamped. And have you forgotten the bunyips and changelings? I've already been in danger. I took a few seconds to work out a grid in my head. Column C is the only responsible choice, I muttered. You are crazy, Twilight. What the heck are you talking about? I picked up a pebble and used it to draw out the grid in the dust at our hoofs. 2 rows for the 2 possible situations. Row 1, the ruins are relatively safe. Row 2, the ruins are dangerous, you see? Now I make the 3 columns to represent 3 possible courses of action. A. Continue on. B. Continue using extreme caution. C. Return to Canterlot. In each of the 6 boxes I put the most pessimistic outcome of the action matched with the situation. I filled in the boxes. A. Continue. B. Caution. C. Return. 1. Save. A. Continue. Save. B. Caution. Waste time. C. Return. Save. 2. Dangerous. A. Continue. Death. B. Caution. High risk. C. Return. Save. In this case I've chosen the C column not because it has the most desirable outcome, but because it eliminates the possibility of the worst. It's the only logical choice to make. I put the pebble down at the top of column C. Oh yes, of course. Jigsaw still had her ears pinned back and she was showing a lot of teeth. We will just hoof it back to Canterlot and forget about finding the cornucopia and the weapon. Just leave something that is supposed to be able to defeat Princess Celestia in the territory of the changelings. Brilliant, Twilight, just brilliant. I was shocked by her sudden anger. I was, well, hurt by it. I was only thinking of her safety and she had misunderstood me at that. I had to make myself clear. Not we, Jigsaw. You. You are going back to Canterlot. I can contact Luna and— Jigsaw's ears had been nearly wrapped around the back of her head and her lips drawn up in an absolutely feral snarl. And then, suddenly, she was crying. I'm sorry, Twilight. I'm really sorry. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable and I wasn't trying to push you into something you didn't want to do. I swear by the sun and moon I thought you were returning my little signals. I'll sleep outside the library or I'll do whatever you want. Just don't send me back, please. Did you ever have one of those moments when you realize that you and another pony are talking about 2 very, very different things? And that you've been seriously misunderstanding one another for quite some time? It's kind of like cantering into an invisible brick wall, isn't it? Look, Jigsaw went on as I tried to get my mental hoofs under me again. I can help keep us safe. She kicked open the bronze door of the building so hard it bounced off the wall before a hinge gave way and it wrenched to a wobbling halt, half open. Then she leapt into the darkness of the entranceway and stomped on the flagstones of the floor. See? No traps, no danger. I knew there wouldn't be because of the mark on the doorframe. You didn't even notice it, did you? Jigsaw, wait, I began. And who's going to document the exploration? Sure, you can describe things well, but you can't manage to draw a halfway decent stick figure. Look at this. She pulled her own journal out of her bag, flipped it open and held it out for me to see. The pages held a very detailed pencil drawing of the library rotunda and precise, close-up sketches of the border of suns with the letters that I had decoded below them. Stop! Stop! I tried to interrupt her. It's my fault. I don't care whose fault it is. I just don't want to be sent home. I wanted to calmly explain to her exactly how we had come to this misunderstanding, but it seemed the situation called for something more direct. All right, you're staying, I shouted. For about 3 breaths, Jigsaw gasped like she had just galloped 5 miles and then burst out crying again.
Thank you, Prince,
What could I do? I wrapped my wings around her and made her wordless, soothing sounds until she calmed down.
Let me explain something to you,
I said when she had quieted to the point where I thought she would be willing to listen to me.
I am probably less experienced in social subtleties than a mere half my age. Even when I do pick up on signals, half the time I convince myself I'm mistaken, and the other half I'm too paralyzed by indecision to respond correctly. None of this was your fault, and I would be the biggest hypocrite in Equestria if I held any of it against you.
She shifted as if she wanted to pull away from me, but I held my embrace just a while longer to make a point.
You don't make me uncomfortable at all.
1.
I don't mind holding you like this, do I? As long as you understand it doesn't mean I'm promising or wanting anything more.
1.
Yup, a teensy white lie there. I'm getting snot all over your chest.
Oh. I let her slip out from between my wings and we both got clean cloths and some water from our supplies.
You said something about a mark on the doorframe?
I asked as I wrung out my wet cloths and picked up one to dry myself with.
Yes,
she nodded, blinking up and wiping her eyes one last time.
It's a sign used by expeditions to mark areas that have been examined. 2 horseshoe shapes touching at the tips of the toes, with hash marks indicating the level of possible interest or significance. An X means some danger and a zigzag means deadly danger. The library has 3 hash marks. There are several other symbols too. I've never heard of them, I said. Well, it's not like they're official or anything. They're just something that developed in the field, I guess.
I brought our bags into the building and set out things for lunch. It was a bit early, but we would both benefit from a bit of food and some Canterlot first aid. 2. Again, I summoned up some watercress sandwiches and a few cinnamon buns for dessert. I didn't like to do that often, but dried rations were a world away from what any pony would consider comfort food. 2. Tea. After lunch, Jigsaw and I were just as excruciatingly polite and careful toward one another as we had been in the morning, but it felt ever so much better. The town hall turned out to be just as safe and uninteresting as Jigsaw had predicted based on the 1 hashmark sign on the doorframe. It may have held interesting documents and bits of art at one time, but it was bare of even furniture by the time we arrived. There were the ever-present carvings of unicorns strutting around, of course, and they were done with quite a bit of artistic merit, Jigsaw assured me, but I'd gotten tired of them after the first few rooms. As we left the building, Jigsaw got out the map and made a mark next to the building that was a twin to the one carved on its doorframe.
I wonder why the original expedition didn't do that, I observed. There's one on the library, but not anywhere else I can see. That is odd, Jigsaw agreed. Usually they mark the map at the same time they mark the buildings. It's not like there aren't any other marked buildings. Look there.
She pointed at the smaller structure besides the one we had just left. I spotted the mark easily now that I knew what to look for. 2 horseshoe, no hash marks.
Even less interesting than the town hall, it seems.
Jigsaw tapped the map thoughtfully and said,
Maybe we should just update the map, walk around looking for survey signs in the most likely areas. Then we could do a more focused search based on better information tomorrow.
It was a good plan, and that's how we spent the rest of the day. I kept probing the ruins with little bursts of magic while keeping a nearly completed matrix for a shield at the back of my mind. I wasn't going to let my guard down for a second. If something happened to Jigsaw after I could have sent her home to safety, I'd never forgive myself. The wind shifted near sunset and brought smoke and ash from the broken mountain drifting into the city. When we got back to the library, in addition to my double shields, I improvised a filtering spell that kept us from having to brief the stuff. Jigsaw and I left our bedrolls where they had been the night before and spread out the map between us. We both agreed to start the next day with the long building that had been marked with 4 hash marks. We both had wanted to chuck the plan and go in right away when we had found it, but it would have been foolish to do so with only an hour of daylight left. We finally settled in and pulled the blankets over ourselves. Just before I fell asleep, I thought I heard Jigsaw say ever so quietly, "Thank you for letting me stay," but I might have imagined it.
I half expected a visit from Luna that night, holding forth in archaic anguish as she tended to do when she was moody or upset, but I didn't even remember my dreams. I awoke to the smell of breakfast cooking. "Good morning, Twilight," Jigsaw said very cheerfully as I blinked sleep from my eyes and sat up. "The tea's almost brewed. Would you like raisins or cinnamon in your oatmeal?" Ah, we were pretending it never happened. That was fine with me. That was a game I was good at. "Yes, thank you. And a teaspoon of honey, please." The wind must have changed during the night because the sky's pretty clear. There's about an inch of dust covering everything though, so it would be wise for us to wrap up all the food carefully before you drop the shields, or we'll be eating grit for the rest of the trip. Do you want honey in your tea too? I let her chatter away while I got out my hairbrush and wrestled my rat's nest back into some semblance of a mane and tail. We were both eager to get to the 4 hashmark building, but I was determined to be extra cautious for the rest of the time we were in the city, so we went slowly and I frequently cast detection spells, even on ground we had already covered. If we traveled any faster than a slow walk, we kicked up a lot of dust anyway. As we approached the central plaza, a stone fell off the top of a wall we were walking close to. It was probably unbalanced by the weight of the dust that had settled on it during the night and was finally toppled by the vibrations of our hoof falls. I snapped my head to the side before I even realized what I was doing and released a blast from my horn. I not only vaporized the stone, but most of the wall behind it, and the one behind that. "Road apples, Twilight!" Jigsaw swore as most of the surrounding masonry collapsed with a rumble, and I quickly began flapping my wings to keep the cloud of dust off of us. "Sorry," I muttered. "I guess I'm a little twitchy." "You think?" Jigsaw caught herself. "I mean, I guess it's better to overreact than whatever. Than to freeze up and maybe get killed? Definitely better." I had certainly learned that lesson the hard way. So many ponies considered me to be something special, certainly more special than I really was, but I knew how close and how many times I had come to being no pony at all. Only the combination of hard work, good friends, and a lot of luck had gotten me through the dangerous times that had come all too often. I sighed. I was trying to tell myself how hard I'd had it, and instead I was getting nostalgic for all the adventures I'd had with my friends. Which was stupid because there I was having a brand new adventure with a brand new friend. I swear, sometimes my brain has a mind of its own. "Sorry for snapping at you, Jigsaw," I told her as we got away from the newly ruined parts of the ruins. "But I'm going to keep a few spells on a hair trigger until we get out of this place and you're safe again." No, that's fine, Twilight. Just try not to do that to any priceless artifacts, okay?" "I'll try," I said solemnly. "But no promises. If a golden chalice has to die to keep you safe, so be it." That got a chuckle out of her. We got to the long building we were headed for. It was 1 street away from the plaza but lined up with it like the spoke of a wheel. The 2 big double doors opened outward and were set high enough that we could open them without disturbing the dust in the street. I checked them again, but everything seemed fine, so we swung them open. It was empty. Well, not exactly empty. The floor was made of heavy flagstones that stretched to the other end of the building, and 2 more doors that were identical to the ones we had just come through. There were 2 deep grooves worn into the flagstones that were spaced just about right to have been made by the wheels of carts or wagons. And halfway down the narrow enclosure was what appeared to be a half-round space set off to the left side. The walls held the ubiquitous carvings of unicorns as well as a lot of imagery I normally associated with harvest festivals in more arable lands. The real surprise awaited us when we got close enough to see the curved walls of the demi-tower halfway down the length of the structure. There, the decoration was a mosaic rather than a bas-relief, carved from stone. Even to my unappreciative eye, it was a masterpiece. Jigsaw whipped out her journal and immediately began sketching away. The mosaic depicted a chaotic mass of fruits, grains, and vegetables pouring from a huge symbol of magic that topped the wall. The colors were intense, even after a millennium. Jigsaw paused in her drawing and pointed with a hoof. "Look, Twilight, the highlights on the grapes, and the drops of dew on the apples. I think they're diamonds. And the grains of wheat are citrines, and there's more. I think half that mosaic is gemstones." She was right.
The art was not only a masterwork, it was worth a rather large fortune in materials alone. But more importantly, it was all about one thing. Food.
Jigsaw,
I said quietly as my eyes tracked downwards where the depiction of the food flowed.
I think we've found the cornucopia.
Raised above the floor of the building was a carved pedestal about chest high on me. The face of the pedestal, too, carried a bejeweled mosaic of produce, but its top was plain granite polished to a mirror-smooth surface. And on it rested nothing.
Or where the cornucopia used to be,
Jigsaw said, her book and pencil slipping from her grasp and plopping to the floor. It wasn't fair.
I bet this never happens to Daring Do,
I grumbled.
Her adventures get edited,
Jigsaw grumbled.
Welcome to the real world, princess.